Okay, so I normally don't. Why does this always happen? I press record, and I don't know what the fuck to say anymore. Oh wait, no, I don't want to quit that. So, recently put out a new vlog again, and I just thought that I would do a little behind the scenes thing, just showing how I made some of these shots and some of the problems that I had to solve. There were a couple of them, not too many. So, right off the bat, this is our first effect shot. Now you might be looking at this and wondering, oh, like what did you have to do for this? This looks like an ordinary shot. Well, right here you can see this little there's a tripod leg, and I had to go ahead and paint that out. If I zoom in right there, yeah, you see I had to paint out this tripod leg because I completely forgot that reflections exist. And on top of that, I also painted out my car. This is the tail end of my car, and the reason why I did that is because this was before my car starts to roll up. So my car rolls up, I roll up in my car, and I kept my reflection in the window after I roll up because, just for continuity's sake. Oh my god, the birds are so fucking loud right now. Oh, this is the second thing that I had to do, sort of more of an invisible effect. So what I had to do is darken and blur Preston's sunglasses because you can see me standing right in the reflection. So yeah, I had to blur. Let me turn these off. I at first blurred it, and I looked at it and I was like, yeah, that's still too obvious. So I had to darken it as well. And on top of all that, I added noise onto the adjustment layer because I wanted to try and match the original noise of the shot. So I added noise back in, and then I added another tiny blur on top of it to blur the noise so it's not as sharp, and then exposure to bring it down so then it's not as noticeable that I'm standing right there. Because again, I forgot that reflections exist, and I'm a fucking idiot. Next thing that I wanted to talk about is how I do the handwritten titles, because I don't know how obvious it is, but that actually is my handwriting. It's not a font that I installed. It is my actual handwriting, and the way that I do that is I literally will write it out on a piece of paper. Yeah, so you can see right here. I write it out on a piece of paper, and I have a flatbed scanner that's sitting right next to me, and I scan that piece of paper. I write it out twice so that I can cut between the two different writings just to give it that dancing effect that you see. Yeah, you see it's like dancing around a little bit. And so the way that I do this is I always animate it, at least in a 24 frames per second video, I animate it on threes. So every third frame it changes, and it just cycles in between those two different drawings. I import the image of the page in, and then I mask it so it's just the area that I care about, and then I use an invert effect to make it so that it's on black instead of white, because obviously paper's white, and I write it with a black Sharpie, and then I invert the colors so it's the opposite, so that it's black on white, and then I throw it into a blending mode like screen to get rid of the black and only have the white for the text show through. And then I use a tiny hint, just a tiny little hint, like 3% of a Gaussian blur, just to soften it a little bit, because I think it looks a little harsh. So I use a Gaussian blur to soften it a tiny bit, and then a little bit of RGB separation, which gives you that fringing effect that you see if I exaggerate it. Let me do this. If I exaggerate it, you can see it's splitting off the three color channels. So I bring it up to, I just use just a tiny hint of it, like 2%, to give it that sort of fringing effect. And then I added glow on top of it just to stylize it a little bit more. The RGB separation and the glow are purely for stylization purposes. I like adding imperfections into my image just to give it a little more character, a little more life, make it look like, it's completely analog when it's somewhat analog, but also half not. Oh, so now we come across the plane shot that I did. So how I did this is entirely a miniature. It's a model. So this is the cutout image, and what I did was, so I took the model plane and I stuck it on the windowsill at my office at work because I noticed that the sun was shining through the window, and so I wanted to try and match the lighting as much as I could. So I grabbed a still from an angle that I liked, which it was pretty much this angle, and then I put it over this shot that I got while I was flying in the plane. This is literally just a shot out the window that I took. So this is the original cutout image of the plane that I just plopped on top of the background plate. And the very first effect that I use is a simple choker to try and cut down on some of those darkened edges that I guess Photoshop didn't get for some reason. And then Lumetri color, this did most of the work here because it was really dark and it was a little bit warmer than I wanted. So I used Lumetri color to correct the luminance and colors to try and match the background plate a little bit more. There's a light wrap effect on here that I ended up not using anyway, so I'll get rid of that. And then on top of all that, I did a match grain effect to match the grain of the background plate to try and make it blend a little bit more. And then these two clips are airplane turbines. Yeah, so it's this like piece of stock footage that I got off of I think it was Envato, and I used that, so I masked around it and then applied a bunch of effects on it to help composite it onto the turbine a little bit more, because I found that without these, it looks a little bit more like a miniature because you can actually see the individual blades, and from far away, like from a shot that's this far back, you wouldn't be able to see that amount of, like, the blades on the turbine would not be that big. So I put that on there, and they also move, like they actually spin, so it animates it a little bit more, but you can't even see it from this far away. But it helps to sell the scale of it a little bit more, so that's why I did it. Okay, so next thing I wanted to talk about was this shot, which is, it's a fucking 2001 Space Odyssey reference. That's supposed to be the monolith, which I actually modeled out in Blender. So I actually modeled this, which I know isn't, like, that impressive, because it's just, like, the basic Blender cube that I just messed around with the proportions of it. And then I just played with the specular and roughness to make it look like the monolith from 2001 a little bit more. And then one thing that I made sure to do was, with the virtual camera, I made sure to set it to the exact focal length of the lens that I was using while I was shooting this video, which is 17.5 millimeters. And then on top of all that, I actually added an HDRI image. Yeah, so I plugged in this random HDRI image that I got off of Polyhaven. I thought it matched, fairly decently to the environment that we're in. So I rendered off the monolith in two different passes, one with just the monolith and one that's just the shadow, so that I could manipulate the shadow just by itself, just on its own. So all I did was take this still PNG of the monolith, and I tracked it onto Preston's hand, which one of the tricky parts that I found about tracking his hand is the fact that there are shadows moving around, because there was like a tree right next to us, and so I was like initially tracking his palm, but the shadows moving around on his hand was kind of messing up the track. So I tried to find an area that wouldn't mess up the track, and I found the base of his fingers to suffice for that, which it's still not like a perfect track. You can kind of see the monolith kind of slipping around a little bit. Hold on, let me see. Like if you look at the base of it, you can kind of see the track slipping a little bit, but it's not something that most people would notice. That's just me being nitpicky. So I used the shadow pass to, make it interact with Preston's hand a little bit more. And then on top of all that, I added chromatic aberration. Chromatic aberration just kind of, it really helps, especially when you're doing any sort of energy effect. Like, I like to think that the monolith is giving off such great energy and power that it's distorting the camera lens. So I use that on top of a vignette effect to try and draw your attention more towards the monolith a little bit more. And then I used a bunch of compositing effects to make it match a little bit more. On top of a glow, I used a glow to try and get the edge of it to shine a little bit more, to try and give off that energy effect. The other thing that I just saw that I almost forgot about, I had to replace the sky in a couple of these shots because the original shot looked overblown and really gross. So I used a luminance key to take out the original sky, and then I put in a different image of a better looking sky, because it helps it look a little bit better than this. So yeah, that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about on this. There were a couple of problems that I had to fix, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about. So end of the video. Bye.